So, the source of your power in life is your attitude towards the world. And in human nature, I kind of describe what I believe an attitude is. It's your lens, it's your way of looking at the world. Everybody's lens is different. You're not seeing things exactly as they are. You're seeing them filtered through how you look at them. Some people
This is so important.
Yeah. Some people are optimistic and adventurous. Some people are anxious and closed. And you could put two people, find the circumstances very exciting, but it's the same thing. It's just you're judging it in a different way. So the lens that you want a lens that clarifies things. You want a lens that's realistic, that you're trying to see things as they are, right? It's good to be excited, but sometimes if you're too excited and too adventurous, you're going to walk right up to that tiger and they're going to eat you alive. Sometimes you have to be a little bit wary of things. You have to see your circumstances for what they are. In military terms, they call it situational awareness. You're very aware, crystal clear about who you are, about who other people are, about what the world is like. So that's the attitude that you want to craft for yourself in this world. And it's very difficult. As you've been saying very eloquently, the cards are stacked against you. Because of how we're wired. Our brains developed 200,000 years ago in circumstances that certainly aren't the way things are now. So there's kind of a gap there between how we're wired to think and what's going on in the 21st century. And B, we're dealing with technology that's making things harder. So your goal in life is to become more realistic, to be able to step back and look at things as they are. And how do you get there is the question. So first you have to see that as your goal, and it has to be important to you. It has to be something that you want. And it's not just something that's cold and dry and scientific. So there's yourself. Everything begins with you, right? You're filled with all kinds of illusions about who you are, about what you're good at, what you're bad at, what your weaknesses are, what your strengths are. If you're able to see inside of yourself with a degree of realism, you'll be able to understand, this is what I was destined to be in life. This is what I call my life's task. This is the career that fits me, that suits me. So if you're able to have that realism, when you're 22 years old, you're not going to suddenly go off on this wrong career path that's going to make you miserable, make you an alcoholic by the time you're 30. You're going to have a degree of direction in life. It's incredibly liberating. It's incredibly powerful to be able to see inside of yourself and know what you were destined for and what makes you you. Other people wear masks. They smile, but their smile doesn't mean anything. There are toxic people out there. It's not everybody. I don't mean to make you paranoid. Maybe there's like 5% of the world that's truly toxic. Every single human being, I can guarantee you, has had to deal with these toxic people in a way that's painful. And you don't see them, they're very tricky. These are people who've learned to disguise themselves. You're going to get sucked into all these dramas and traumas with these people. It can make your life miserable. Imagine that you had a realistic attitude and you could see through these people. You could catch, before you get involved with them, signs of that they might be one of these types. Another thing that's incredibly liberating, the world that you live in, there's a zeitgeist, there's a spirit of the times, there are trends, there's things that are going on right now in your career, in the world at large. And we're fed with so much bullshit in the media. We have no idea what's really going on. The ability to see, this is where the world is headed. This is where business will be in 2 years. This is where it's going to be. This is the trends. The power to see inside yourself, the power inside to see other people, to see the world. You're Superman if you can do that. If you can have a degree of that, the world is at your feet, basically. So, I don't think there's any counter argument to that, where you don't want that kind of realism. And it's not this ugly thing. It's incredibly sexy because it's incredibly powerful, right? So we've now come to the point, you and I, we agree that that's what you want. The person out there is going, yeah, I want that as well. Okay, Robert, that's fine. How do I get there? Aha. Well, you have to be patient. You have to know it's a process. You can't get ahead of yourself. You can't get ahead of your skis. It's going to take day by day by day by day. You have to build it up. You're working against your own nature. You're working against the times. So be patient, be compassionate with yourself, and learn to take these baby steps. And in the book, Daily Laws, I have a lot of different ways of attacking that. The main way of attacking it is learning the ability, as we talked about earlier, to be able to detach yourself from the immediate events going on and to be able to look at yourself with a degree of dispassion and say, this is what I really did, what really happened here. So just a simple example, something kind of doesn't go the way you want it to, which will happen almost every day or every week, with your children, with your spouse, with your boss, wherever. Okay, what is your normal reaction? Every single human, including myself, blame that person. They're not caring. They're not empathetic. They're an asshole. They're narcissistic, blah, blah, blah. Stop it. Stop it right now. Don't do that again. Step back and say, what did I do? Okay? If that person is toxic, why am I involved with them? There's something wrong about me. If that person got reactive and resentful and they had a bad tone of voice, something that I said, maybe there was something in me that was projecting kind of negativity. Maybe my own mood was kind of creating this atmosphere that made them react that way. Look at yourself instead of blaming other people. These are parts of the process. If something went wrong, maybe, and I'm to blame, just accept it. Just accept the fact that it happened. Don't try to change it, but just say that this has happened and I'm not going to fight it. And it's just my fate in life. It's okay, right? So the ability to accept things is also taking ownership of them. So if something bad happens and you can't really control it, because let's be honest, there are times that you can't control things. They're just going to happen. Who predicted a pandemic? You can't control that, right? So your first reaction is to get all pissy and go, damn it, why did it happen? Fuck, I'm a victim, blah, blah, blah. Well, okay, that's just going to make you more depressed, more inward, more harder to act in the world. Whereas if you say, okay, I can't control the pandemic. It's a terrible thing, but I'm going to roll with the punches. I'm going to accept the way things are. I'm not going to fight it. This is the way the world is. What can I get out of it? What kind of benefit? Well, maybe I can reassess my career. Maybe before the pandemic happened, I was just headed in this path and I was kind of blind. Maybe I'm not really happy with what I am. I'm not happy with my relationships, with my career. Maybe I need to reassess it. Maybe it's time for me to be alone and read books and study and learn new skills, etc. So the ability to accept things that you can't change and to see some benefit from them is also part of that. In a Japanese Zen way, your emotions are truth because you are feeling the way you're feeling, okay? So that's real, right? But it can stem from a very false source as well. Okay, so let's just go back to that example that I gave earlier of the young boy who felt abandoned by his mother, right? And his whole pattern in his life is to be the one that's doing the abandoning, so he's not abandoning himself. So in the moment that he's with this woman within this relationship that's been going on, he's starting to feel something's wrong with her. She's bad. She's not right for me. She's going to, I better leave this relationship, right? He's not reacting on what she's doing. His emotions are not coming from what she could be perfectly fine. She could be totally loving. He's projecting onto her his own emotions. What he feels is genuine. He genuinely feels that something is wrong, but it doesn't come from the truth itself. It comes from some deeper, much deeper pain. So your emotions, you're feeling them, but the source of them, you have no idea what the source is, right? So, you explode at somebody in your office tomorrow because of something, and then you don't realize that in the morning you were already put in a bad mood by something that somebody else said, and that kind of made you prone to exploding later on in the day. You are seeing that other person that triggered you, but you're not seeing what happened earlier in the day that set the tone for it, that planted the seed for you being triggered, right? So you don't have access to the source of what's really causing your emotions. Now, I'll be honest, you're never going to get true access to the actual source of it because there's something buried very deep inside. Who knows where it came from? Who knows how young you were? Who knows really the unconscious processes that were going on? Okay, so you're never going to get at the core of the real truth, but you can get closer to it. You can not react in the moment. You can say, if you're this young man who's trapped in this pattern, it's a very difficult thing to go, but am I being is it true that she's actually being like that? If I actually step back and analyzed her words, they're totally neutral. She's not being mean or vicious. She's not about to leave me, right? Or she's not betraying me in any way. It's totally neutral, right? And I often go through that process. I've been in a relationship for a long time where I get a little bit upset and angry and I'm blaming her and blah, blah, blah. And I have to go back, like, it takes a couple hours for the microwave to kind of cool down, right? And you go, no way, man. Why does she feel the way she's feeling? Well, it probably comes from me, but I'm totally projecting onto her, right? So just the idea that you are projecting your emotions onto people, just the idea that you're reacting to something that's an illusion, it's a mirage, is liberating enough because it's going to prevent you from doing stupid things. How many times I've had this problem. Do you get angry and you send that angry email voicing all of your upset and displeasure? And then 2 hours later, you go, shit, I wish I hadn't said that. I wish I hadn't revealed my vulnerability. I wish I had, I overreacted, right? So the ability to write that email and then put it in the draft folder and never send it. And, I have this thing in my own computer where in my email, that draft folder is getting larger and larger. It's got 12, it's got 20, it's got 80 things in it. That shows me 80 times I have put that thing into the draft folder and I have a degree of control. That the way the brain works is continually telling us stories about the world, about ourselves, about the way people are. And I don't mean stories it's literally what I'm saying. It's like constructed like a story. It has a narrative arc to it, right? This is what happened to me. And the story is constructed and this is the result. And what the story I'm telling myself might not be the correct story at all, right? So being able to understand what really happened, what is actually the story that occurred there is extremely important. And so you're hitting on the bedrock, which is extremely fundamental, which is, do you believe that you're capable of change? Do you believe that good things happen when you go through a process of learning and taking steps? Do you believe, going back to your beliefs, that you can actually get out of your patterns? Because you can be fooling yourself. You can be bullshitting. You can be saying, yeah, I kind of do. But deep down inside, you don't really want to do it because, believe it or not, your bad patterns give you a degree of comfort, right? It's something that you know. And to get out of them, you're suddenly thrust into the unknown. And that could be very frightening. So you could be holding on to these bad patterns. So the belief that I can change, I can actually do something different in my life. I can actually recreate myself. I can actually learn things. I can actually rewire my brain because the brain is incredibly plastic. Even at the age of 40, 50, you can change your career. You can learn new skills. I've reached 60. I'm constantly learning as well. The brain is insanely plastic. Do you believe that? Do you believe that you have the possibility to change yourself, to alter your patterns? That's probably the single most important thing right there. And to get people to believe that, as I said, there's two levels. There's the people who will shake their head, yeah, they'll read mastery, but it won't mean anything to them because they're afraid of the change. They're comfortable with a degree of failure, I hate to say, because if you don't try things, you never have to deal with the responsibility, the pain of failure, right? So you don't really want to change deep down inside. You don't really believe in Tom's number one bedrock belief, right? You're kind of fooling yourself. So it's not a fairy tale. It's not a bunch of a myth that we're creating. It's true that you have the power. The brain, if you just understood this one thing, that the brain is like a landscape. It's like a landscape out in the world that you see where things can be lush and tropical, or they can be completely arid and dead. You create that landscape yourself. You create the brain that you have by the degree of how you're open to experience, by the degree of how much you learn, by the degree of how many different sources of information you take in. You can create this incredibly alive brain that's very creative, imaginative, and how much more fun will your life be if you're open and you let things come in and new ideas come in.